Chapman. He is also the author of a very famous book entitled Five Love Languages, and I'm pretty sure everybody is familiar with that book. It's a really good book, very descriptive, and it teaches you a lot, not just about yourself or the person that you're with, but just love in general. A lot of different things that traits or things of that sort that we didn't realize we had, like we're able to see that. And I know a lot of people are like, things I wish I knew before I got married. Like, I'm not even married, or I'm not even thinking about getting married, or whatever the case may be. This book is very informative, even to the person that's not actually married. Like, you just learn so much about yourself, and it puts certain things into perspective that you didn't even think about. Or if you're in a case where you've been with somebody a long time, I think everyone who's been in that situation, you can kind of attest to, like, 5 years down the line, I wish I would have asked you this on the first date. Like, so that sort of thing. Like, it really opens that up. And I really just wanted to have a discussion with you guys about the book. So if anybody that's new to my podcast, typically I do my podcast on Podbean, but I wanted to make it available to everybody, even people that weren't on that particular site. So we did it today on Facebook, just to make it available for everybody. But the next episode will be um, betterwe.podbean.com. And then you can just go follow us, and then for the updates for the next episode. So without further ado, I want to introduce my panelists for today. Tori, you can introduce yourself first.
Hey, hello, 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 everybody. My name is Shatori. For those who don't know me, I am a mother of two beautiful daughters that drive me crazy, but I love it. I'm also a fitness instructor. My day job actually is elevator mechanic. So I'm fixing elevators, 5 days a week. Um, and I am not married, but just like Traquan said, this book is not for just those who are married, been in a long-term relationship. So this book things that I'm excited to discuss with you guys today.
All right, D, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, good evening, or should I say good night, everyone. Most of you may, my name is Davon Hodges. Yeah, I'm a father. I'm a loving person. I'm that unprofessional person everybody go to for advice. Yeah, I have background in being a counselor. I've done that for numerous of years. Um, yeah, just basically just touch bases with a mass of people, just have a positive, open discussion based on a book. I've been in a long-term relationship, but just want to give you guys an insight. I don't want you to take this off of based on my relationship, but just give them it's a perspective that I have to give in a relationship and just my experience of just pretty much just living. Yeah, so I'm really, really excited to just have a positive discussion with you guys. Yeah, hopefully if not one person, many more than that could just take something away from it. So let's go.
Right,
Let's do it.
exactly. And that's what I love so much about, what I've been able to create, is that it's more so of an open discussion rather than me speaking and saying this is law, right? And how many times have we been somewhere, been at a barbecue, been at work in a break room, and you having this conversation like, how are we even talking about this right now? But then you go home and you thinking about that, like, yo, that really changed my perspective. I never thought about it like that. Or you have a random conversation with a stranger and you're like, you know what, well, I never thought about this like that. So that's another reason why I wanted to do it on Facebook Live, because I want for everyone to be able to chime in, for everybody to be able to comment and say something. And then maybe I might walk away and be like, yo, I never thought about it like that, had such and such not commented, or had I not had you two as panelists. So diving right into the topic, things I wish I'd known before I got married. I chose three different chapters that I wanted to discuss, three different topics. And I love the fact that in this book, if you haven't read it already, he literally phrases every chapter like, I wish I would have known X, Y, and Z, right? So the first chapter that I thought was like monumental was I wish I would have known that being in love is not an adequate foundation for building a successful marriage. So like that right there was really just mind blowing, because again, whether you've been married, whether you've been engaged, whether you're single, this is information that we need to know, like, you know, before you even go down that route. And he talks about a lot of different instances in the book where he does counseling and he's talking to different couples. And when he's counseling them, they're like, all right, after the first session, well, we're in love, so marry us now. And, you know, he describes the in love feeling. He uses a word called the tinglies, right? And he says, like, you know, that tingly feeling when you with somebody and every time you walk away from them, you want to call them, you text them, you're thinking about them all the time. And that's not to say that 10 years down the line you don't feel like that. But in the very beginning, I think we can all attest that it's just different. Like, it's just different. And the question that I want to pose to you guys is, if the average lifespan of this tingly feeling, right, is 2 years, right? Because we have this tingly feeling and we just run with that. And there's certain things that we don't talk about, like intellectual compatibility, spiritual compatibility, like social interests, like what type of stuff are you into when you're not around me? Do we have any common values? Like, so we skip over that. And we just go straight to the I'm in love, I'm feeling tingly. So if the average lifespan of the tinglies is 2 years, how much longer after that do you think you can expect to experience that like euphoric feeling?
Right. So I'll just go jump in with that. So we seeing the average. Hopefully everyone would want to feel like for the extensive capacity of their marriage, those tingly feelings. Because if we in the beginning we label those tingly feelings as butterflies. If you
Right.
for lack of we say it's butterflies. Um uh I think it's important to try to always but we being real. And being real means like in the beginning you get the butterflies, and then down the line, like, do we just deal with the person? Do we just tolerate the person? How do we get those butterflies back? Right. So it's all about building that foundation. And with some of the subtopics that intellectual, about having an emotional control and a social interest. I feel like if we talk about those things, then we could always know what you want and what your significant other want, and always put that in the forefront and keep that in mind to keep that lifespan of the tingly on forever. But who's to say can it happen for the average person? Can it happen? We don't know. But it's just a conversation that I feel like it needs to be had.
I agree. So touching on that, I think that the tinglies last, especially as long as the conversation connection is there. Um, I do believe that as long as you're getting to know your partner, excuse me, the baby, as long as you're getting to know your partner on a daily basis, you'll never fully know someone unless you're, you know, and love. I feel like when engaging in that someone that you love and you're learning them, that tingly feeling is always going to be there. Like, I'm always going to want to talk to you all day. I'm always going to want to know how your day is. I'm always going to want to come back to you and discuss how my day was. Those are the tingly feelings that I think will always be there as long as there's next thing or something to have in common with someone.
I totally
Absolutely.
agree with that. So let me ask you a question. At what point in the relationship do or in the friendship, because we really want to be friends, like, with people before you even take that step and things of that sort, but at what point in the situation do now we start talking about those different values, like the intellectual, emotional, social interests. Like, are we connected spiritually? Like, do we have spiritual unity, common interests? Like, are those things? Because from my experience, I've noticed that a lot of those simple, or what may seem simple points, are like talked about, like when y'all move in and you like, what you believe, like, what you mean you're an atheist? Like, I never knew that. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, and just to
Right.
use that as an example, if you are an atheist, that's between you and the man upstairs, and
Absolutely.
but um like, at what point do like, do you talk about those things?
I think those
Um,
sorry, excuse me.
no, it's fine. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I think those come up. I do agree after you live with someone, because they don't know somebody, you live with them. So certain conversations come up where you're learning news about someone when you live together. Because now we're coming from being social with, and then coming back, at the end of the day, at the end of the night. So, certain conversations come up, only really when you live together and when you're like doing life together, paying bills, you know, food shopping, like the daily, day to day, what would seem normal to, everybody. This is what you're doing with that person. So certain conversations come up, financial, you know, so.
Right. So I totally agree. And I just want to piggyback off what you said. I'm glad you said the word like that may can come up when you live together. But we got to think about the mass of people today. The reason certain people don't move in with each other is because certain some of these things weren't discussed prior to moving in. So they have that fear like, oh, if we don't have the same social interest, why should I move in with someone? If we can't have a intellectual conversation, why should I move in with someone? Um, so that brings fear to people. So I think wanted to say hi to me. He see me on video. Hi, baby. Yeah, it's important to have these conversations. Well, most of these conversations in the beginning, you just want to know what you get yourself into. Because let's think about it. Now that we're living together, now we got to face bills. So I can't just pick up and leave tomorrow because there's going to be a bill due that we both have to share. But I'm so let's so that I know what we're dealing with. If I'm an emotional person, I have someone to support me when I struggle with what I'm saying. So I could be take place in the but not. Let's pull the fold. Let's let it take place in the why not? So
Right.
then when you go down the line, you know exactly what you're dealing with. Because if you look a lot of conversations, a lot of relationships and conversations, a lot of relationships don't succeed because of certain conversations are not had in the beginning. So then you don't have the foundation that you should have had. So then you jump
Right.
into the relationship, and now you're seeing later on, okay, so I'm living with this person now. I didn't know this person snore. Did I
Right.
ask this person what's the bad
Right.
habits they
Look,
may
look, look.
have?
It
So
was
let's have
up, it
that
was up. Now you
conversation.
stuck.
But the funny
Right.
thing is, you don't knowing what we know now, at our age, and what we've been through, what, like, if you were going into a new relationship, you would know what to ask. But if you're in a long-term relationship, certain conversations you don't know to bring up to a person, certain questions I don't know to ask you, if you're a morning person, or if you like your ex easy. I don't know
Right.
to ask certain things
That's
unless,
also in the book, by the way.
I I don't know to ask certain questions unless, it's presented in front of me, like if I had to go out and start dating now, which is not happening, I know what I'm looking for. If you're in a relationship from a teenager, or, just blind to certain things, you don't know, what to ask, what to be aware of.
Right. Right.
So,
I definitely agree with that. And that's why information is so key, and having conversations like this, not to say that this is what you should do, but just more so like, have you thought about this? Right. So I want to make sure that we get into everybody's comments. So hey Michelle, um, also Natalie says, I think you should first make sure you're on the same page and ensure you both have the same definition of the word love. I think that that's so key. And then that goes into the book that a book that Gary Chapman also wrote, called The Five Love Languages, where it discusses five different general principles or how people express or would like to receive love. So making sure that y'all have the same definition of love is like vital, because if your definition of love is gifts, but my definition of love is acts of kindness, then you're looking at me like, oh, well, I'm buying you gifts. I'm buying you gifts. Like, why you not happy? And then I'm looking at you like, well, I'm mowing the lawn. I'm mowing the lawn. Like, why you not happy? But we got two definitions of the word love.
right.
So Natalie, I think that that was a great comment. And then we have another Natalie, the younger Natalie. She also she said, you learn someone once y'all live together and you learn their habits.
Yes.
So kind of going like up the alley of what we were saying. Like I agree with both of y'all takes, in the sense of there are a lot of things that we should try to bring up front as much as we possibly can. But like any situation in life, it's really hard to know it until you're actually in it. So of course there are going to be things that don't come up, but putting that plan in place, I think is key. And Natalie said, absolutely, Devon, we must discuss before we move in. Key already, I think that it should be discussed from jump. So a lot of people is like, listen,
Yes.
from
We
rip,
should.
first date, let me talk to you, like, let's figure this
Right.
out. Um, Natalie said, knowing someone's responsibility level. Like that's major. Like knowing, like, how responsible is this person? Can I depend on this person? Like
Right.
that's major.
Right,
You know
right.
the funny thing? Sorry, I keep cutting
No,
you
go
off,
ahead, go
Devon.
ahead.
I
No, no, it's fine, it's fine.
apologize. The funny thing about what you just said, Traquan, about responsibility levels. So I'm the oldest, so I'm a natural born leader. My partner, he's not the oldest, so I don't think we bump heads in that instance. But at the same time, you have people who don't know how to lead, and then you have people who know how to lead, and you would
Right,
think, okay, he's the man, he should know how to lead. But no, a lot of that plays on what their responsibilities were as they grew. What
right,
did their parents put them, in charge of? Like, I was in charge of a lot, so I know how to be a leader, but not necessarily, what I'm have. I didn't know I was going to meet somebody who didn't know, you know,
right. Or had to
the
learn, or
same
just wasn't
quality.
in that place just yet, you know?
Right.
Right. So the most important part about what you guys just said, is the middle ground. When you go into a relationship, we all come from like a different background of the way we grew up and the way we had to be as a child until in adulthood. So if you have someone who not necessarily a born leader, but it's the open dialogue to be like, hey, I know I'm leading most of the time, but hey, if you could just pick up the slack in this area, and that dialogue, that person could, because they're in a relationship with you and you
Right.
compromise, they could lead in certain areas. So it's that in
Mm-hmm.
between. You could be a natural born leader. They could be a person that's not leading, whether they was the oldest child or the youngest child. You just want to make sure
Mm-hmm.
that within a relationship, that conversation is had, because you got
I
needs
agree.
that want to be met, and that person got needs that want to be fulfilled, and
Mm-hmm.
vice versa. You get what I'm
Right.
saying? So it's that in
Right,
between. Like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I know you're not used to leading, but with me, like, I'm used to someone doing 50-50 with the whole leading aspect of it.
Right.
So let's work on that. It's basically the
I
in
love,
Mm-hmm.
between.
yo, I really love that you said that though, because that brings us into the next chapter. So we got three chapters. Chapter one we just went over, which was I wish I had known that love wasn't an adequate foundation for marriage. Now chapter four, and I'll start with you, Devon, since you were like in mid thought. Um, Chapter four is titled I wish I had known how to solve disagreements without arguing. Right. In this particular chapter, the author Gary Chapman talks about different strategies on speaking to each other, and he uses a sentence where he says, when two people disagree, it calls for negotiation. The process requires someone to make a proposal, listen to a counter proposal, and seek to find a solution that everyone can agree on. So my question to you is, how often do you think most people approach a disagreement as a negotiation?
Um, I want to say I totally agree with the idea of it because I feel like there will be less trouble in a lot of relationships, whether it's a friendship, a relationship, or a marriage, or just someone just trying to figure out like if they had that same mindset that he had, it would just be less tension. But to be completely honest, from what I experienced and what I've seen, a lot of people don't do it, to be honest. And then we got to go back and think about the word disagreement, and we got to really define what's an argument, because you can feel to someone and they could take it as an argument as you just expressing yourself. So that's the most important part between like you and your significant other, just knowing like the difference of what an argument is and what a disagreement is and how to come to common terms, so it can be a negotiation to where you giving or receiving and vice versa. But I don't think a lot of people even about argument or what's a disagreement. A lot of times people just maybe jump to conclusions and just shut down because of they heard something that they didn't agree with. So it goes back to just understanding what those actual words really, really mean. And I feel like once we understand what those words actually mean, then we could get the grasp of how do we come to a negotiation and how we could go from there, just finding a resolution.
Right. And Tora,
I agree. I agree.
so even with the remember we talked about like how Gary Chapman phrased the negotiation process. How vital or what do you think about the idea of being in the midst of an argument, right? So now it sounds good when we're just having conversation and emotion levels, but when emotion levels are high, like how easy would you say that it is to be able to say, okay, I'm upset. We're disagreeing right now. I'm gonna make a proposal, and not only make a proposal, which is basically say I'm gonna tell him what I think it is, and this is what it
Right.
is, right? So you're gonna make your proposal. I think the hardest part is, in my opinion, I want to know what yours is, listening to that counter proposal, right? Like actually saying, you know what, this is what I want.
Right.
Let me hear what you want, and then coming
Um,
to an agreement.
so I think the biggest thing with disagreements and arguments, delivery, because you can say whatever you need to say. You know, you can say it really harsh. That'll turn into an argument because automatically you're jumping to defense mode. You can say it, you know, in the nicest way possible, and then you know, there's the um. I just lost my train. I apologize.
No fun.
You know, delivery is the biggest thing for me, because I shut down. You know, like the worst thing I think when it comes to disagreements and arguments, the worst thing I think is to just, because now I can't read your mind. You know? I think it's easier said than done to say, I'm gonna come back to you. Let me ponder on that for a little while, because in the heat of the moment, you gotta hear what's on my mind. Like I have to tell you about yourself. I have to tell you, you know, how you made me feel. But the healthiest thing is what he was talking is, you know, learn to pull back and say, hey, you know what? Let and saying my way is better, but put that to the side and I'll do it your way. You know, and that's a lot, you know,
Yeah,
that takes a lot of sacrifice.
yeah,
But I think that will definitely help. And, arguments, agreements, you know. So
So just going down to our comments, like I see that Natalie said, or let's just say Nikki, just so we can distinguish the two Natalies. Nikki said the way that you feel should never be an argument. It should come to an agreement when love is involved, which is key. Like if you claim to have this feeling, or if you actually have this feeling for a person, you should always be open to hear their feelings. In the book, Gary Chapman actually talks about actually going to your partner at one point and not actually speaking your own mind, but saying, "Hey, I want to listen to you." And I think, like, how often do you hear people say, like, they, like, your significant other
you
comes to you and
don't.
say, "Listen, I just want to listen to
You
you,"
don't.
and don't say anything, just listen.
Mhm.
And so just to really go into what Nikki said, like, your feelings should never be
I,
an issue. They're your feelings, and I love you because I care about your
I
feelings.
mean, I agree. I agree, Natalie. That's how it should be. But in the real world, you have people who are not trying to hurt your feelings. Like, say for instance, someone comes to you and say, hey, what you did, that really hurt my feelings. And you get offended because you're not trying to hurt their feelings. So then that right there, you jump into defense mode. That person is upset, and then now you're upset because you're accusing me of doing something to you that I had no intentions on doing. So that right there can
Yeah.
the argument or the disagreement, because now we're both on defense mode, you
Hmm.
know? So
Right. So
yeah,
being able to come to your partner open, not
delivery
really like,
is
on
wonderful.
edge, and being able to accept what they're saying. And I
Right.
think really, I love the way that Gary Chapman writes, because it's so broad that it can reach anyone, regardless of what your point of view is, right? Because that whole listening piece where you're saying, like, yo, like, that's not even how I took it. But now we can take that as the counter proposal
Right.
stage, like, yo, just take a listen to what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying, what I'm proposing. And although it's
Mm-hmm.
not in the form of a negotiation, like, listening is always key, like, and it's always gonna be a key. But
Mm-hmm.
just we listen so much to talk. And I know I'm guilty of that a lot too, like, because I just always think I'm the
We all
smartest
are. We
person in the
all are.
Yeah,
room.
we all
Don't worry about it.
So I'm just listening, piling it together, like, and I'm gonna rebuttal something you said, but it's gonna start with and another thing. Like, so definitely. Natalie said that now that Torah, that is rich, delivery. And then Key already said, I agree 100% with delivery. Nikki said delivery is key. Um, Adrian Max said, I believe I have to tell you about yourself to avoid an argument. I believe both parties are willing to listen to one or the other. Mary said, you can keep holding your feelings for him to keep him calm. Um, Nikki said, Tora heavy on the special delivery. So, yeah. So, I think great points, like, overall, like, even the comments, like, like, people are saying things in the comments that's just kind of like generating conversations, and allowing me to look at even the book that I've read in a different type of way,
Mhm.
and all of these different scenarios. And my next question is, in normal conversation, how often do you start your sentences with the word you as opposed to I? So we're talking about in these negotiations, like, how often have you started your sentence with you instead of I? And I think just simple verbiage like that, like, I don't even have to use that in a sentence. I think everybody, kind of gets where I'm coming from when I start my sentence with you instead of I.
Mhm.
So Devon, like, how crucial do you think that is, using I rather than you, or does it have a difference at all? Like, when you're in the midst of a negotiation?
I mean, it's very, very important to use the word I instead of the word you. Like most times when you use the word you, um, just to be quite frank, it's a blame game. You did this, or you made me feel this way. You did that. You get what I'm saying? So it's basically like a blame game. But I feel like if we approach it with, oh, I feel this way, or I'm ready to listen, or right. And then in all eyes, you're taking accountability. So basically, it just changes the whole dynamic of the conversation. It sets so a point would, hey, I feel like you should do this or you should do that. You can say, I think we should sit down and we should do this, or I think that is for it to, like, you're gonna have open dialogue. No one is gonna be able to shut down because it's a smoother tone. So I think it's very, very important just taking accountability, because pretty much I took accountability. That's it.
Right.
Like,
And that's one of the hardest parts, taking accountability, because I at times I have a very big ego. Like, so accountability, like, I ain't do that. Like, wrong. Who does wrong? Like, or at least at times that's how
right.
most people feel like they partner feel. Like you never feel like you wrong. You think you do everything right, and you, and even that, like to go to Taurus' point earlier, when you talk about having conversations and people are defensive, once you say you, oh, I'm picking that
Yeah, once
shield
you
up.
throw that you out there, you might as well do this to them.
Right.
With the finger on the forehead, gotta touch it.
So
So
and that
I like
Natalie
that
said,
that
you
he talked
statements
about.
start a fight.
Oh
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah. Basically, if you want to start a fight without saying let's fight, just say you and point the finger. You got a whole fight.
Right. And then Jose Gonzalez said, every day we tend to play the blame game. The magic is when you realize that when you point your finger at one person, they're always one pointing a finger right back at you.
Okay, Jose, let's go.
Yes.
Right. Thank you, bro. Thank you. Thank you. You said amazing podcast, bro. I'm so proud of you. Thank you. But really though, like, so Tara, now from a female perspective, how do you feel once you hear that you as opposed to I? Like, does it make a difference? So Devon kind of spoke to us about being the person actually saying the yous and the I's and taking accountability. How does it feel for you when someone says you versus I, or I versus you?
I mean, at first, automatic, I'm offended. But, knowing what I know now, I learned I accept that, because I want you to tell me, so you can take it either way. You could be defensive about it, or you can take that as okay, let me know so I can change this. Tell me, listen, you hurt my feelings because, or when you did this, it made me upset, because now I'm going to take into account, okay, he didn't like that, or, she didn't like that. Let me not do it again. Now, if I don't know, then now we have a problem. Like we said before, we're not mind readers.
Right.
Me, personally, I don't know about, other women or other people, but I like for someone to come and tell me, what it is that I did wrong, or what it is that hurt their feelings, or what they did not agree with. Because
Right.
now that just leaves room for discussion,
Okay.
and it's room for growth for me, because now I love you. I'm not trying to hurt you. That's the furthest thing from my mind,
Right.
So I want you to tell me. So you can
Yeah.
start off with you to me, because now I'm like, okay, let's talk
Let's
about
talk
it.
about it. Whole fit. You was like, hey,
Let's talk about it.
let's talk about it. I'm so happy to what? What we
Yeah.
talking about here? Like,
Okay,
and
well, let me listen
Okay.
to what you gotta say, because I want to know.
Mhm.
so Gary Chapman says, and all of these points, guys, are really like a lot of these subtopics and that you guys are hearing in regards to each chapter that we're talking about. At the end of each chapter, and this is again, I don't know how many times I'm gonna say this a million times before the episode is over. It's so the book is so well written in the sense that it's written for single, engaged, married, and it gives you all this information about a bunch of stuff that he wish he would have known, that he uses in his counseling sessions with individuals that he speaks with. And at the end of each chapter, there's a section or a segment, if you have the audio book, or if you have the book, you'll have like the paper version of this. And even in the audio book, there's a PDF that has all of this on one sheet. But at the end of each chapter, there's a section called Talk It Over. And then they give scenarios of each of the things, or the highlighted things that that he spoke about. And you can use that and have an exercise with your partner, or you can just use it to reflect with yourself. Like, okay, how often do I use you or I, or how often have I done this in the past? And it's all about personal growth. So like when we look at a better me equals a better we, regardless of how much information this book has or anything else that we discuss, we have to look at ourselves inwardly. How can I take this information and grow? How can I take this information and be better? And how, like, I can't take the thorn out of my brother's eye until I take it out of mine. So, we gotta
Say that one more
look at
time. Say that
ourselves
one more time.
inwardly.
Hold on. Say that one more time.
Oh, I said I can't take the thorn out of my brother's eye until I take it out of my own first. So that's something
Amen.
that I really want us to all think about when we're talking
I
about
like
this,
that.
because yes, we're sharing personal experiences, but the key is for all of us to hear each other's input, so that we can expand our way of thinking, expand our way of looking at things, and make ourselves better. So now when we're in relationship, or when we're done with this podcast and we go back to our significant other, somebody's gonna go to their significant other after this. I promise you guys, somebody's gonna go to their significant other and say, hey, I want to listen to you. And don't
Let's have
say
a
nothing.
conversation.
Don't say nothing. Don't have nothing to say. Even if they say something that you don't like, you just gonna listen, take it all in. Like, yo, do you have anything on your chest right now? I just want to listen to you. And they're gonna look at you like you crazy. Like, what? Like, no, I'm just checking in on you. I just want to listen to you. Like, just
Right.
little stuff like that. I think that we can all take and grow from. One of the other points that Gary Chapman had in regards to approaching disagreements like negotiations, he said that negotiations are enhanced when our requests don't sound like demands. So, Tora, I'm going to start with you. How often do you think your request sounded like a demand?
Mm. I gotta be careful because I don't like to be like pushy. Sometimes I can, come off kind of aggressive. Um, I don't think it's that often, honestly. Honestly, I don't. I make suggestions and I leave room for him to say, nah, I don't think we. I always ask first.
Okay.
Do you think we should do this, or do you think we should do it this way, or do you think we should do it that way? At least I try consciously,
Yeah.
do that because I never
I ain't
want,
gonna say I ain't
to him
demanding.
to feel like, yeah, I want him to feel like a man. I don't want to, emasculate him. Like, you're just doing what I say and that's that, because one, he's not that man. So I
Right.
can,
Right.
I can expect him to say, well, no, I don't agree,
Right.
but I do try to, make sure that there's never he's not my child.
Right.
We tell our children, we negotiate with our partners. So I don't think I do that.
So how about you, Devon? How often would you say, well, I'm not gonna ask you personally, I'm gonna ask you
Right.
to speak for the masses. How often do you think most people make requests, but they really sound like demands?
We're all human. So I think it happens often than not. I think that we just gotta just expand our vocabulary. So instead of saying, I think you should do this, or I think this needs to be done, or you have to do this to please me, I think it's, hey, can we do this? Just expanding our vocabulary, because I think it happens a lot. To be with you toward two people that you toward, you got a second. Hold on. Yeah, we just gotta expand our vocabulary. Just think about not only ourselves, but what the other person needs, so it doesn't come out as a demand. And just use the words "can we" or "do you think it's possible if you can." You get what I'm saying?
Right.
Just to make the other person feel comfortable.
And show that sign of
Yeah.
unity.
Right.
showing us our
Absolutely.
community.
I think it's
Absolutely.
also knowing who you're dealing with.
That
This is a Snapple fact.
You know, as a you never want to feel like your man is a pushover. So I don't ever want to feel like I'm talking reckless to my man and he's just like, okay, baby, whatever you say.
a yes
No,
man, a yes man to be exact, a yes man.
yeah, we
I
Right.
don't
thought
need
y'all
a
like
yes
that. Y'all don't
man,
like that?
right?
Okay.
No, we don't need a yes man. So I think it for the woman is know that they're gonna your partner is gonna speak up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then that's dope. And that's dope. And in the last chapter, I want to go over like speaking up is like so key. And I think that this chapter, chapter 8,
So,
as well as chapter 1, about love not being an adequate foundation. I think this is one of the chapters that I think most people struggle in relationships, or where when everything is good, this is where they hit like, all right, wait, we need to talk about this. And chapter 8 is titled, I wish I would have known that we needed a plan for handling our money. Um, and key word, our money, right? So what you do with your money is what you do with your money. But now when we
right.
become a unit, or if again, if you're single, of course, this does not apply to you. But at some point, if you plan to
Wait,
be in a
but it
relationship,
should.
right? But at some point, if you plan to be in relationship with somebody, I think that the mindset should be that at some point, when I do take this step, marriage, engagement, whenever, you know, I can't tell you when to start being unified, but especially once you hit marriage, though, that's where legally every the dollars, like if you fall out and don't wake up, guess who getting that money? Like, you know what I'm saying? If such and such don't pay a bill, guess who credit score going down? Like, so, I think that that's something that we don't talk about until it's too late, or one person has really good habits and one person has really bad habits. I think that that's something that we see that's very common. So, Devon, I'll start with you. Like, what do you think is a good financial end goal, like for a couple?
Speaking to average dating for a month, or the couple who've been dating for 5 years, couple who've been together 6 years and married. I think it starts with just the conversation, and the end goal is to accommodate the household as a unity when it comes to whatever financial burden or bill be. I don't think that there's this one end goal, because one person's financial situation could not reflect the next person's financial situation. The end
Right.
goal is just the unity in that budget. That's whether it's a spreadsheet where they physically mapped it out together, but they
Right.
did the work and they understand the finances that both of them are partaking in to become, or it's just the overall conversation is like, all right, I got this aspect of it, you got that aspect of it, but together we sum up this amount.
Right.
That's just the end goal.
Right. Okay. And in the book, Gary Chapman tells one of his experiences with his wife, like when they both had they were in college. And while they were in college, she had agreed to go to school while he finished up his graduate studies. But then at one point it got a little rough. So he wound up having to get a job, and they was able to pay their bills and their normal necessities and stuff like that. They didn't want for anything. But once he graduated and she got a job and he got a job, and so they were able to make the sacrifice when they didn't have money. But he used the scenario that the problems weren't when we didn't have money, because we knew that we didn't have money. But once we got money, that's when the problem started, because we were so focused on sacrifice, and now where it's just I just want to spend. I'm excited to spend. And he said with the idea with the problem that they ran into was what to spend on and when to spend it. And Tora, I want to ask you, how common do you think that that is in relationships in general? Like, like, what should you have a say in what your partner should spend money on and when they should spend it?
Um, I do think to some extent you should have a say. That is very common, especially when we have our wants. We always want something. And we have to learn to decipher our wants and what we need. And figuring out what that end goal is. Are we saving towards something? Like, are we just building our credit? We had that. It has to be discussed. It has to be discussed because that is something that I believe can get out of hand, with because there's things that we need to have, we want to have, or we need to have today.
Right, right. I agree with that. Some of the things that because he gave a list of steps, and I'm not going to give y'all all the steps. Y'all gonna have to read the book, listen to the book. But I'll give you guys some of the key steps that he listed in regards to building financial unity with your partner, and see what y'all take on it is. So step one, or one of the steps was building unity, like having the mindset like we're in this together. Not like, nah, we just put $200 in account, $172.55 is mine's. Like, like, so so building that unity, which I think is like self-explanatory, like I think building that unity and having that agreement, like, all right, financially we are unified. And I think it may seem simple, but sometimes you gotta actually say that, like, yo,
Yeah.
we doing this together.
Mm-hmm.
And
And I
then
think that's
yeah, go ahead, Tora.
sorry. I think that's something that in of a relationship that want to go far in. Um, if you've ever been broke together, they're at the bottom.
Right.
Like you can see a person's values when you're broke together.
Yeah. Yeah, because they
Like
ain't
you
got
can
no
see
money.
what they, yeah, like what are their priorities? Because you have people that are broke and they're still spend money on unnecessary. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would say, like, people who are in the beginning stages of your relationship, pay attention to what they, what their priorities is when they, that'll tell a lot about them when they do have it.
Right. And Devon, how important do you think it is to in the very early stages to kind of watch what your partner buys? Like when it's just their money, like when you just meet, like do you have you ever looked at a person and said, red bottoms, Ray-Bans, Gucci dress, yeah, we might have a hard time paying bills around here. Like and
um, I think it's always important to watch the early signs. I watched the first date. So if we go on the first date and I'm paying for everything, cool, it's the first date. All right, all right. But it also goes with values and how that person was raised. Everybody wants to look. If you want the Louis, the red bottoms and that, if it's in our budget, we can still provide for you to do that. But the early
right,
signs are important. If we go to every date and I gotta pay the tab for every date, or if I suggest which doesn't amount to the price of this date, and she always want to do that date. I mean, that's a sign there. But it's not the end of the world. Let's just have that conversation. Let's
right,
see how we can manage that within the budget. Let's see how that
right,
can work
right.
for us and what can't work for us. The early signs are important, man. Come on.
Yeah, that's it. And you know what? That's a fact. And in our first episode, gender roles, we talked a lot about how gender roles is a very old school concept.
Right.
Nowadays, like you'll find a man that stay at home with the kids. You'll find a woman that's the provider, and things of that sort. And people are okay with that. Like it works for them. And then one of the things, or one of the conclusions that we came to, is that gender roles in some instances, maybe consciously or in some different environments, may still be around. But the principle more so is not a gender role, but everybody choose a role. And you choose a role, we're gonna figure out what needs to be done and make sure we get it done. So one of the things that I see here that's like very evident in all of the chapters that we went over, it's just kind of like everybody just figuring out where my place is, like where can I fit in, where can I make the most impact or make the least impact of, when it comes to an argument, and things of that sort. And when you're building these plans, right, do you think, and I'm going to say this is what I think. Oh, as a matter of fact, let's go to the comments before I ask that question. So Key already said, I'm old school. I believe a man should be a provider, but a woman should have her own just in case the table turns, so you can also be there for him. So what do you guys think about that?
Um, well, thanks for that question, T, already. Very much old school too, but just being a young adult in this modern society, it could go either way. It could go either way. I think that the most important part is that we just have that conversation. We know who's the breadwinner, who's not the breadwinner, and then we just go from there.
Okay.
You get
Right.
I don't think that it should hold the man as a provider. Yeah, listen. I've been up sometimes. I've sometimes
Right.
part held me down. I'll tell you down. You get what I'm saying? Live in a modern day society. Yeah, just basically about having that conversation. I feel like I keep saying the word conversation. That's the foundation. Every topic that if you don't have a foundation,
Yeah.
if you don't, the relationship won't last. But it's basically about having to see where you fit in and that person fit in. And if you guys in goal don't align, you could either tweak, compromise, or you could just figure out what's best for you.
Right.
Mutual respect. That's that.
Right. Right. I agree with that. So do you think it's a good idea when you're budgeting with your partner? And Tora, I'll ask you this question. Do you think it's a good idea when you're budgeting with your partner, to put a limit on the purchases that you guys can make without consulting each other? So saying like, all right, if you're making a purchase over $100, you got to let me know.
I've never been there yet. We haven't budgeted together. We just go with the flow. As long as our bills are paid and we know we put some money aside for savings. But when we do get, I do think there should be a limit in place, because if we're on page and we have the same end goal and we know what it is that we want together as a family, it's necessary to say, listen, don't spend over $200
Right.
on sneakers. It is that. So yeah, I do think that's necessary to put a cap on it.
Right.
What you think, Devon?
Absolutely. To be honest, I'm about to promote next business. I'm selling spreadsheets for budgets. Just let us know. I'm just joking. Like she said, everything she said, it was just pretty much accurate. It's very imperative that that happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
So
she hit it
one of
right
the
on the
last
head.
things, just to wrap it up, one of the last things that Gary Chapman talked about in this chapter was that if you are engaged, and I'll take it a step further and say if you guys are at a point where you're unifying your finances and you guys are that close, but I am pushing engagement in marriage though. I'm a big advocate for marriage and love. But if you guys are engaged, one of the things that you should talk about is your assets that you have and also your liabilities. How often do we do stuff like that? Like, when's the last time you heard somebody say, yeah, I was dating this guy and he was just letting me know that his credit score was 400 and I don't know what I'm gonna do, girl. Like, Like how, and or that he owns, or you know, how many times have you heard people say, yeah, I've been with him for 15 years. I just found out his mother left him a house. He got 3 houses in Florida. Like how often do we talk about like our assets and our liabilities? Like, so how crucial is that? Like to that when you guys get to a point where you are unifying your money, that you're talking about like the assets and the liabilities that you bring to the table, like your debt and things of that sort.
Well, that's very crucial because you know that, you know, God forbid something happens, if this is a person that you're going to spend the rest of your life with, you know, these are things that they must know. You know, they have to know. It's not just about, oh, I love you. It's about, you know, we're in this together, you know, to do us part, you know. So they have to be aware of what you come with. And that includes fine, you know, issues. What's wrong with your credit? You know, what do you have? What kind of debt do you have? Because it's just fair. It's just because, like I said, if we're in this together, we're in all of it together. You
Right.
know, for me personally, I'm pretty vocal about in my relationship about, you know, my finances and what I'm spending money on or what I'm in. Um, and you see it, you know, if I'm a woman, I like to buy clothes, I like to buy nice things, I like to buy stuff.
Yeah, I saw that bike.
That is something that is very crucial to the person that you're trusting you with. You know, God, and that's going to be the person pull a plug or to not pull a plug. So that's, you know, that's the trust right there. You know, I trust everything I come with, and let's talk about it.
Right. So Devon, how crucial is the debt aspect of it? Like like coming into a
Um,
situation or unifying money and one of you guys is in debt and making that plan. Like, do you think like as a community that we make, because me personally, I feel like as a community, we don't make enough financial plans at all. Like not even just the simple ones. It's just our financial plan is pay the bills, after the bills is paid, spend it to the last dollar. Like for most people that I know. Like so, and then you eat in you know, a bowl of ice until the next
ramen
paycheck comes
noodles.
for lunch. So
Right.
how important is it to once talk about this debt that you may be coming into the situation in, and the second or part B of that question is how important is it now to make a financial plan to pay off that debt before you guys get into something like marriage?
It's very crucial. Just you guys already mentioned, it's really, really important. I think that a lot of people don't do it. I think that talking about and the burden a lot of people away there, but you are afraid. Um, we with the girl Yandy. She said she didn't want to get married because she didn't want to take over his debt.
Yeah.
She
Mhm.
loves she well two to be exact. But she didn't want to marry him officially on paper because she didn't want to.
Mhm.
It's really really important. Talking about it, putting it all out on it so that because you get married on both of you. Just talk about ways to come out of it. It's even more important to have a plan, a backup plan. Um, Again, just the finances and all, just making sure that you guys are sustainable. Um, Everybody wants to live a good life, but if you
Mhm.
don't take care of their debt, we all know debt can haunt you after death. So good, put
That's a
a
fact.
plan in place. Take care of it. Don't only to work and you need help if math is not your best subject, find with somebody, get advice on how to just construct a plan and just work on it. Have a good life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
it's
And just
crucial.
and just go out there and seek that information. Like
Yeah, it's
so
there. You
we
gotta
went a
want it.
little bit over. Yeah. Yeah, and that's what a lot of things. That's what a lot of things that separates us all. Like your will, your want. Like how bad do you really want it? Like how
Mhm.
many people do you hear say they want to be millionaires or live
You
comfortable
know they
and
need it.
but they hit snooze. They hit snooze when the alarm come up
Mhm.
on the morning. You know what I'm saying? You got to be at work at 9:30. You working from home and you clocking in at 9:29. You know, like or you waking up or opening your eyes at 9:29. Like, and that was me at one point. Like that was me at one point, and that's just me being honest
Mhm.
with you guys. Like at one point, there was just certain things I can look at my relationship and say like, yo, like I can't believe this is not going like this. I can't believe this is not going like that. Um, and not to turn this into a Bible study or nothing like that, but if you even look at the way that Jesus did a lot of things, he did a lot of things by example. Um, so if he can wash somebody's feet, why can't I? Like, you get what I'm saying? And to bring it back full circle, we have to look at ourselves internally, better ourselves. The better we are, the stronger one link is, the stronger the next link is, the stronger the chain is. So a better me equals a better we. Just to recap with you guys real quick, we went over chapter 1. For people that actually do read the book, we went over a book by Gary Chapman entitled Things I Wish I'd Known Before I Got Married. This guy's also the same author of the 5 Love Languages, best-selling author. We went over chapter 1. I wish I had known that love wasn't a sufficient foundation for building a marriage on. Chapter 4, I wish I had known how to solve disagreements without arguing. And then chapter 8, I wish I would have known that we needed a plan for handling our money. So 3 very vital topics that I think in our communities, in our relationships, and our singleness, like we all need to think about. Just a little funny point, like there's even a chapter in there that said, I wish I would have known that somebody had to clean the toilet.
That's
So
my favorite one.
so it's a lot of humor in there. It's a lot of different points in there, like literally like small stuff that you would have never thought to ask or talk to your partner about. And it just jogs your mind to so many different things. Like so, um, thank you all of you guys for tuning in. Like I'm super excited that I got to have this conversation. I'm sorry that we got on a little late. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, but we made it. So thank you everybody that viewed this episode. Thank you, Tora.
Thank you,
Thank you
Taekwon.
so much. Thank you, Devon. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate your opinions. Like I learned so much, and I talked to both of you guys so much. But even in being in this conversation, like I learned so much from you guys. Like everybody that commented or shared the video, like thank you. Everybody whose input was in there, like I learned a lot just from hearing from you guys.
Mhm.
And do you guys have anything to say to the people before we go?
Yeah, just want to just thank everybody for just listening, just being a part of it. This is actually my first podcast. I'm beyond excited. Like I can't wait to get off. To be honest, to get a glass of wine, but that's neither here nor there. But
Listen,
yeah,
and if
just
you're doing
thank you
something,
guys
if
for the
y'all doing
questions.
something on the side, shout y'all brands out. Let them know what y'all
Oh,
do. Let them know where to find y'all. With like shout y'all out.
right. Right. Just thank everybody for just continuing the conversation, asking the question. Again, there's no law to any of this that we spoke about today. It's just about just spreading knowledge and just information and just trying to push the culture. So once again, I just really appreciate you, all of you guys, for real. And thank you, Trey, for having me, and Tor for even help this conversation. But like, I want to do this more often. Let's do
Yeah,
it.
I'm with you on that, Devon. Let's do this. Thank you, Traquan, for having me. This is actually another exercise for me, being able to talk in front of the camera and being live. I don't do this. Anybody who knows me knows I'm a little shy until you really get to know me. So thank you
All right.
for helping me get out of that
I knew you could
comfort.
do it. I knew you could do it.
Um, so thank you to everybody who tuned in. Thank you to everyone who shared the video, shared the podcast. There will be more, right, Traquan?
That's a
Thank you
fact.
for
There will
this.
be more
The
next
better me,
Tuesday.
better we. It's so dope. I'm super proud of you, bro. I'm
Appreciate
really
it.
proud of you.
Pre-
I'm ever whatever panel is, you need a panelist, you need somebody, piggyback some ideas off of. I'm in and this is, this is what I love.
And you told them you
For
was a
me,
fitness mommy, so tell them where your fitness stuff
yes,
is at.
I am a fitness mom. You guys can follow me on Imperfect Mom on Instagram. That's IMPERFIT_mom. That's on Instagram. So follow me. I'll be posting more about, fitness and tips and everything very, very soon. I have some big things coming. So follow me on Instagram. Thank you again
Shout
I'm
for
out
not
to
a
that.
mom,
Shout out to
but
that.
I'm
Shout out to
excited.
that.
I'm not a mom, but I'm excited.
Shout
Get
out.
them
Shout
mom,
out.
get them moms fit. Get them moms fit, Tora. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in once again. And just remember, a better me equals a better we. I'll see you guys next Tuesday. And by Thursday, this Thursday, you guys will have the information for the topic for the next episode, as well as the panelists. So look out for that post on Thursday. And I'll see you guys next Tuesday. Better me, better we.
better we. Good night.